Yeah. Hello, everybody. It looks like I'm live. Tell me how you hear me, please. Anybody who is on already, it would be good to know. Okay. All right. Is audio working well? You can hear. Okay, great. You can hear fine. Good. All right. So today I decided to do a live stream, as you can see, on a topic rather than just a live stream and to answer random questions as we used to do before. But yeah, I decided to do a live stream on intonation. Why intonation? Well, obviously, because there are three main categories in which a violinist has to be very proficient in order to be palatable, so to speak, so we can listen to them. And I'm not talking about musical qualities here at all. I am just talking about craftsmanship that we have to possess in order to approach music. And those categories, basic categories, are, of course, ability to play in tune, which means intonation, we call it, and ability to play with a good quality sound, tone, and ability to play with rhythm. So today we're not talking about tone and not talking about rhythm at all, and just only addressing the issue of intonation. Intonation on violin. Okay, the main thing that I would like to address again about intonation is not a theory or theories about it. Okay, so for those who are interested in different tuning systems, or the question is, why are we using this tuning mode or system rather, or temperament? That is not going to be, I'm not going to talk about this today at all. It's a huge topic, and you can find a lot of good answers, by the way, on YouTube, also on Google and YouTube. There's a lot of good explanations about the different systems of tuning. But what we all know empirically, all of us, I mean, of course, professional violinists with very well developed ears and hearing. So what we all know is okay, this person plays really in tune. This person's intonation is not very stable. This is really out of tune. Okay. And by that, I don't mean on professional level, it's not like really out of like a wrong note almost. That is not on professional level. So we hear much better when we get to be developed as violinists, of course. So, so I'm not going to go into theory how this or that system goes or works. We all know that that's empirically the truth. In tune, not in tune. So, however, how do we get to this? What system do we use to become proficient on the basic level? Let's start with basics. Always, as my motto is, start from the easy, or here in this not necessarily easy thing, but the basic stuff. And then we will be building upon that, upon that, upon that. So what I mean by basic intonation is every violinist needs to know parameters. Like when we start, when we're young, when we're beginners. By young, I mean young, not young age of a person, but young age of a player. You started at 15, you're a young violinist. You started at 7, of course, or 5, you're young. If you start at 30, you're also young. So in that regard. So with that, how do we orient ourselves in the world of this? I mean, nothing, right? There are no frets. And by the way, again, because I was trained professionally from the beginning, I was trained and I knew that I wanted to be a professional. And so therefore I was trained professionally. And in fact, I think in Russia back then, in the non-existent country of Soviet Union back then, there were never, as far as I knew, there were never tapes used. So the visual component of placing your fingers, like they're sometimes used in the United States, a lot of times, beginner violinists start with tapes. Again, this is, I would say, excuse me, my advice to uh, teachers who and students who want to become professionals, I don't think it's a very great way to start. However, it does work for non-professional start, and maybe later you get used to it. You take them off the tapes, right? But anyway, so what is the detriment of using just purely visual signaling? It's because you're then, I mean, visuality is very important, and so we just go by sight, like where my finger goes, and it also acknowledges the tape color and how it, but then remove the tape, and if the person's ear hasn't developed together with this, it will be again slightly out of tune or a lot out of tune. So in my opinion, again, for professional training, it's better not to use tapes and just completely go by sensation, ear. Well, first of all, of course, ear, then sensation where you put the finger on the fingerboard. Okay, but again, this is beginning of our talk today, my talk today, and then of course I will have time for questions. Obviously, yes. So before I really get into it, I want to tell you that question of intonation. When I was little, as many of you know, I grew up in a family of two violinists. My parents were violinists, and so there were a lot of musicians coming to our apartment to visit my parents. And so I assumed that everybody played an instrument, of course. In my universe, everybody played an instrument. And so somebody, probably a pianist, asked me, "So what do you think? What is a harder instrument to play, piano or violin?" I said, "Violin." And we did have an upright piano in the apartment, of course. And I didn't play piano, but I certainly knew notes on the piano and could play some intervals, whatever. And so, why violin? I said, because we have intonation. So pretty much like this, only in Russian. I mean, from the get-go, you understand that intonation is a very big animal that you constantly have to tame and to deal with just the very first start, right? Okay, and it is so. I mean, on piano, you can, and whatever they tune the piano, you're happy with this. I mean, we or a teacher are tuned our violin, or we ourselves tune our violin. That doesn't guarantee much, although it can and it should, and that's what we will talk about soon. I will talk about soon. Any case, so again, before we get into more um, in a more just like how to here, and I will show things up. Obviously, I will want to tell you another story now from already professional part of life, of my life, or many people's life. So here's the situation. I was playing many times different ensembles, right? We're playing an ensemble, I'm playing in a piano trio. I have then a cellist playing with me, and of course, pianist. But in the piece that we're playing, there is a passage at some point when cellist and I play octaves, in octaves. So we call it playing in unison, but in fact, we're playing in octaves, which should really sound like one note. If it's in tune, really, it just kind of gels together, melts so well that it sounds like one note. So we perform it, we play in the rehearsal, we notice it's out of tune, he or she and I will call them they at this point, so because it's not a she and he, it doesn't matter. So we both heard it, we get to the rehearsal, just the two of us, and we start thinking, just hearing that, oh my God, it's out of tune. So then we just zero on like, two notes, because one is okay, the other one is not okay, or it's inconsistent. And so after repeating several times, both of us start hearing the same thing. So my note lands, like my finger would land exactly in the same place every time I play it. At this point, I'm not adjusting to that other person. I'm just playing it there where I think it's clean, where I hear it's clean. And their finger lands a little bit sharper, and then a little bit even more sharp, or a little bit less, and then a little bit flatter, and then good, and then repeat again. It's a little bit sharper, a little bit flatter. So it's not consistent. Okay. So we look at it, but I know it's a professional cellist. It's a professional cellist, completely grown up and teaching also and performing. And therefore, how is it so? and they proposed to me like, okay, let's do this. And I said, okay, so how do you do this besides just playing together and one of us adjusting to the other? In this case, it obviously has to be that person adjusting to me because I am constantly placing the finger in the same place and their finger places in other places. So I asked, I mean, how does it work that, this particular interval, kind of not consistent? And they say, well, because, well, it depends on which key I'm playing in. I mean, we're playing in that key, in whichever key we are. By the way, we weren't in any key at that particular moment because we're just playing a passage, like a line. And the key of the movement, let's say, is F major. But at this point, it's not really F major. It's not really anything. It kind of modulates a little bit and comes back. It's just basically, it's a unison. It's an octave. So then I realized, so I said, explain to me, please, how you practice, because I know they practiced before rehearsal. We both heard that it was out of tune in the altogether rehearsal with piano. So we both heard, we both went to that passage and practiced separately, just in case, of course. And so then they explained to me, oh, but because we start an F major, so I put an F, I think it was an F note drone on the tuner, and then match all the notes to that F to the drone. Then, but here it changes, and then we go to that key. And I'm like, oh my God, well, that explains it, because if you go by the drone, which is you constantly match to that particular pitch, everything that you're playing, like several notes, and then you change it because in a different next bar, let's say, it's a different drone, then everything adjusts. No wonder their fingers weren't falling in the same places. Okay, so what I would say, it's a wrong approach to basic training of intonation. Doesn't matter what instrument, by the way, cellist, violists, violinists. I absolutely would disagree with anybody who teaches like this for somebody who is just starting to play, who needs to have a clear framework of intonation. And I had a lot of friends back in Russia and on the other continent in Europe, who were cellists and who played fantastically in tune, like fantastically in tune. Of course, I also studied with people who, for instance, the Board and String Quartet with whom I studied in the quartet class, fantastic players. None of them were trained from the basics. None of them were trained in the system of a key. No, it's the basics for us. It is our own instrument. Okay, so for instance, if I play violin, then my basic intonation will be at first only geared towards the violin and not, oh, but we have to match with the viola if we play with viola, or cello if we play, or with the double bass, or with the piano. No, that is too much complication for the beginning of this very in getting to start to swim in this very actually murky waters of intonation. You have to have clear guidance. You have to have clear parameters, not to drown. Because as my friend here and colleague who was explaining to me about that way of training intonation, obviously the results weren't very good. Just weren't very. And by the way, that was not the only cellist with whom I encountered this. I also encountered this with a couple other string instruments, and even violins, by the way. So, but in any case, so how do we get some clarity? What should we start from? So we have several constants, luckily, in violin playing. And those constants for us are our open strings. And of course, absolutely most of us know it. So here we go with our A. Oh, by the way, here behind me, I have my dear friend who I will introduce later to you. It's an app, but by the way, no, I'm not promoting that app particularly. I just use it myself. I started using it, especially with my students. So they didn't pay me for it or anything. Anyway, so I will start with A. I will tune that A to some good A reliable around me, either with piano or if I have a tuner, I will tune it A, and then I will tune my strings so that the fifths are as clean as possible sounding. Clean meaning they're basically gelled together. They're very consonant-like, yet clean, right? So, and then the other strings, just like we were all taught at the beginning. I don't think anybody teaches, thank goodness, here too. But in which key are you going to be playing? In the key of F? Then you will have to tune this differently. No, nobody does it, right? So here we have our consonant. We have 4 strings, and we'll go with these 4 strings. So I would not recommend to immediately start thinking about the C string, because at some point in the future you will be playing some chamber music, probably with the other group of instruments which do have C string. We don't. At first, we deal with what we have. That's how all of those wonderful violinists that played really in tune, and that's how they played, like Heifetz, Milstein, Shumsky or Gingold or Galamian, or you name it. All of those people, by the way, all of them came from Europe or even Russia, or Russian Empire at least. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, all of those people, and by the way, here do the same thing. It will be lots of violinists from America who would be also playing very much in tune. All of them were using these 4 strings first as a guiding light about the intonation. Okay, so how we were taught to tune, that you play open string, let's say, and then you place your A, your first finger A. So A has an open string. So when you are placing this note here, you're listening to a sound of ringing with the A open, sympathetic vibration. Okay. And in my day, of course, when we were training, we had no gadgets. Now there is also, as I said, there's a gadget, for instance, that total energy tuner that I'm using. But back then we had none. So how you can do without any gadgets, let's say you don't have an app and you cannot get an app, and or you're without your cell phone somewhere in the jungles of Amazon, and you're still with your violin and you want to still practice your intonation. Yes, you can, just like we were in the jungles of Russia back then. So, and then you play maybe that one. Also very much ring, of course, because it's a unison. And then you go to that A. And you compare them all with the breaks. So you can, you're at this point not practicing where to put your fingers yet, because the first thing we do, we have to develop an ear for a good intonation. So first thing we do, we attune our ears to what's definitely in tune on our little violin. And on our little violin, that would be the all string, all the notes that correspond with open strings completely. So G, 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 and many octaves in different octaves, A, D, A, and E. Okay, definitely those 4 notes. So when I think it's clear why, right? Because we can check them, because they're perfect intervals. So we check for our basic intonation to play solo. And that's another important thing, that when you professionally train your intonation, you're first, not forever, but first, training your solo intonation. What does it mean? That yes, you will be playing either completely solo, or you even will be playing with the piano, but still as a soloist, not something very involved, not maybe sonatas in big way, but a little light accompaniment will be there, which is what usually happens with the young players, right? So you're training your solo intonation. And the solo intonation is based on those 4 strings. Now, there, when I was trained, so how else you can check your very good intonation? So again, we go to the G, we take a break, we hear the interval between G and A. So actually, it's a step number 2. So first step is just to go. like this, right? And hearing that the A is in tune, the lower A will be in tune with open. But then you also can and should go to the G open again, make a break, put your finger there, and then play that A. That way you imprint the interval, the whole step as we have it in our intonation and violin, good intonation, from G to A. Another way to check your A, luckily, yeah, there's another way, of course. So I put it there and then I check it with D open. As a perfect fourth. All of that will match. If it's clean, it all will match. All right, so why is that important when we can just do open? Because we can have one more note that we can be helped with. Okay, so then we repeat the procedure on the next string, right? So I'm looking for the ring. I got the ring, and I can check it with A open. The same situation, the clean note will check with that, and then also with A open. And then we go to our last string, which you can check and put the B in there. And then you put the B first finger. And now for some people, this B will be very sharp. And I'll get to it in a moment. If it's sore, that's fine. But look at this. We have a perfect fourth. So with the B, even though we don't have a string of the B to really resonate, yeah, we can check it with the perfect fourth, which is forms with the E open, and therefore establish another, definitive note or definite note that we can just build all our B's to that B now, okay? So going octave lower, going octave higher, and just again, we are still tuning our ears only. So that's the most important part. So with people who immediately start training at what I call arrivals, it's a mistake. That's a big mistake, actually, as a matter of fact. First, you train your ear, then you start training physicality of the movement that leads you to this note. Now, I said that for some people, that B would sound really, really sharp. For some people, my E could, the one that I played, not my, the objective E would sound really sharp when I play the first finger. That usually happens because we play in our course of our life, even when we play solo repertoire, once in a while there are double stops, once in a while there are chords, and we tune those double stops and chords. And so here we get to the really like the crux of the problem. But I won't jump too far too soon. So about the single note intonation. Single note intonation always came first and always should come first in order not to confuse poor player. Okay, poor beginning player who is completely lost without frets and without even with those tips. By the way, those tips are still, they will be just, it's very approximate. Why approximate? Let me show you. Look, okay. So I will put my D, right? It's a pretty good D. It rings. It gels, what I call gelling with the D open. Fine. So now, hear how sharp it became? Yes, I still rings, but you can hear it's sharp. Yeah, what do? Do you see how much I do there? Well, now I do much more so you can actually see it. But I mean, it can be minute. It can be like this. So just the angle of my finger landing can be slightly different. It will be already out of tune. So yeah, there is such a thing, of course, as training our fingers and having like strong landings, right? Not pressing too much, but nevertheless, yes, there's certain strength, there's certain Not so much strength, that the speed of landing is important very much. Well, again, when we're beginners, we're not concerning ourselves with that as much yet, but later we will, of course. So anyway, so then there is this thing is landing exactly in the same shape of the finger would be important on violin, which is, by the way, much less, it's much more forgivable on the bigger instruments because the margin of error is bigger, obviously there. But yeah, with us, even in the first position, I mean, that kind of a difference, this is huge difference. It's already out of tune. Oh, what about here? If you go here, that will be a different note altogether. So that's a little bit off the subject. It's about the, then precision of landing, precision of training. But nevertheless, again, ear comes first, then comes what you do with it. Okay, so other notes. What do we do with the other notes? So we so far had G. If I go scale, I have a G, A. We had a B. We didn't have the C yet. So then, so we skipped the C. We had the D. We had the E. We didn't have that F sharp. We had another G. Oh, voila. We finished an octave. So now two notes that were not there were obviously C and F sharp if we're playing in G major scale, right? At this point, I'll just go with G major because why? Well, because it's easier and we always have to start with what's easier. Okay, so to be sure what you're doing, in my teaching, in my pedagogy, always approach something that you can do well as soon as possible. Okay, and then build on it. Okay, so don't set yourself up for failure. Not a good idea. Anyway, okay, so here we go. So our scale in G scale. What to do with the C? Where to put that C? Now, here we get into actually important subject, by the way. And I said we're not going to talk about theory, but here I need to mention something, that all of what we're so far I'm demonstrating on any violin, well-tuned violin, all these notes so far, they were notes, clean notes in Pythagorean tuning. That's what we use when we play violin, alone, separately, not in ensemble, not in a duet with especially with another lower string instrument, but by ourselves or even with piano, we use Pythagorean tuning 99% of the time, I would say, maybe 98, but anyway, huge percentage. So what to do with the other notes? The C and an F sharp. Then both C and F sharp, I call them choice notes. You have a choice where to put them. And different people, very good people, I'm talking about highly professional level people, will put them in slightly different places, sometimes based on a context and sometimes just not, just basically always. And all of that will sound in tune anyway, because the tiny differences there are imperceptible, especially in context when music flows. Anyway, so what to do with the F sharp? We now came to the question of expressive intonation. And of course, all of us heard about this. And what is expressive intonation? Expressive intonation basically means that we emphasize certain leanings within, that would be within the key, of course, or within the key that exists right in that little area where you're playing, which in my case is G major scale, to highlight the note into which it is a relationship to which is a half step. So for instance, here. Now B, even though we have that B here, yeah. So I have that B, so my C is little bit, I mean relatively little bit, actually quite a bit, closer to the B than would be an equal temperament half step. And you know what equal temperament is. Well, that's kind of important. It's theory, but it's not theory. That's how the pianos are tuned. So the pianos are tuned, by dividing the 12 notes of the scale, chromatic scale, obviously, right, in equal half steps. So that's what equal temperament, not well temperament, equal temperament. So we don't play equal temperament. right? We play that, what we do, which is Pythagorean. And in Pythagorean, we actually still use expressive intonation, which is a little bit emphasizing some of the notes that will be okay either way. Now, let me demonstrate to you. Here we go. So here I go to my D and a G. I check with G open, I make sure it's clean. Then I go to my C. I will try not to move my finger here at all. And I will play the C right here. And I will get my perfect fourth. So that C is a clean C because it's a perfect fourth. It's a clean C in this environment. It's completely in Pythagorean intonation C. Okay, so by feel, when we play here, that C, those of us who started early and we were little, how we were explaining, like where you put that half step, you put it really close. And I remember with my very thin fingers, I was putting it really close. Of course, mine was very, very flat, obviously, because it's actually not absolutely close, depending on the thickness of your fingers, but it is close. But I would want to put it sometimes like that. That's a little bit flat, actually. In expressive intonation, if I go to the B, I would prefer to have that one a little bit flatter. But I don't know. Do you hear that it's a little bit flatter or not? I mean, sometimes it's even I wouldn't hear if it's in flowing contact, as I say. Okay, and F sharp, the same thing. The same thing with the F sharp. So here I go with my G. I would want to put my F sharp right there because that's expressively leading to the G. It will be a little bit sharp for even Pythagorean thing. In Pythagorean, it will be, let's see. Right there. So that is Pythagorean. The other one I showed was a little bit sharper, which would be Pythagorean still, but expressive intonation. We sharpened that sharp leading to the, especially it's a leading tone, like in the G major scale it is. Okay, so the question about other keys, well, actually will be the same thing. So if you're playing A scale, I would have that. Anything that you tune with the open strings, you take care of those first, and then you choose where to put the other based on the intervals you have already instilled in your ear, training it that way. It's pretty simple, actually. And you know what? It will pretty much agree, even with a good tuning system, pretty much with like total energy tuner that I'm using. I figure out, yeah, it can be used. In my old days, we absolutely could not use any tuners because all tuners, and if you have a basic tuner, it will be an equal temperament. Okay, don't use it. The only thing you can use from there is A. You get yourself the A, that's fine. And then you tune the way you tune. And then you go to your Pythagorean tuned ear, okay? But again, this is all for single note intonation. And then we come to the double stops. And here is my B, which I found with my E open. By the way, if you immediately go to this without listening to ta ta, to the interval, that would be a mistake if you're really tuning your ear and learning where to LN. You need to absolutely, if you did this, go to single note. You found it in tune, go to and tell yourself this is clean. This is clean, or this is how I like it. Oh, I like that one. This is a clean one. And then you listen again to the interval, okay? So, but all right, so I found my B, perfectly wonderful. And then I played, I have a G major chord. And I end up with this monster. and it doesn't sound in tune at all. Of course, there's explanation in waves, what the waves do and how they grade and blah, blah, blah. Please find this if you want to find this, how it really happens physically. It's all on YouTube. It's in different videos. So here we are when this B, we hear it's out of tune. What do? We pull it back. How do I know to pull it back? Well, by experience, obviously. But by now you can also just learn it. Then, yeah, to match with B, D open here, your B will always be flatter. And then here now we have this. What a wonderful life of playing really in tune. Choose one. What to do in the Saint-Saëns Concerto number 3 in the third movement, you tell me. What to do? We have there, beginning there. Then we have landing there. The finger is the same, right? And so what do we do in there? How do we play it in more in tune? If I have that one in tune, that will not be in tune, right? If I don't move anything with the finger. Interesting, huh? Yes, it's our life. So what we do in there, we will actually decide what's more important, what's more audible. I mean, of course, here will be this, because you will be sitting on it for a longer time. It's a arrival. So this one is a pickup. So what you do, you actually can compromise. You can put it a little bit flatter here, and then move finger just like that. Remember, I was in the beginning, I was showing like a little bit. Yeah, those are two different little places. Even though I'm staying on my fifth very nicely. Yeah, that's it. And you are in tune. But those E's, of course, will not be in tune, but nobody can hear them, luckily, because our ear is also very imperfect. So we retrain it to perfection, as perfect as it's possible, which is not much as possible, but it's pretty good still degree. So we train it, we will hear E with G, it will be good, we will be happy, and then we hear B with E, and we're also happy. So that's how you tune those strange situations, and very few, by the way, not many. Anyway, but so that's when I was little again, I was young, and I started playing double stops. And by the way, I have the videos, single note intonation on this channel, and also double stop intonation. I have actual videos. If you haven't seen them, if you have any question more about this later, I do have those videos, and I explained everything there. And oh, anyway, so I'm thinking over some comments that very few, but a couple of comments very interesting comments I got there. Anyhow, so when I was little and I started playing double stops, I realized that I had to put a B in a different place where I normally put it. I always put it in the one that I was trained already put it, match with the open. Or the E, I had to put it if I played, that E here. But I had to put it lower. So, well, but that's not the same place where I trained it for a couple of years already. I know it was supposed to be there, and now it's there, that difference. And so I approached my mother, who was a wonderful violinist, and I said, Mom, so is it like there are two places for the E or B, maybe, or other notes? Are there two places on the violin? You never told me that. And she said, no, just go practice. Just play cleanly. Don't ask me. My mother was a wonderful teacher, by the way, but at some points, maybe I got her in the wrong time of the day or whatever. She was busy. And she gave me this, like, don't think about too much. Just go play in tune. So I went and played in tune, and trained to play in tune. So for myself, however, I did, and of course, closely observing my mom when she played, and sometimes I would just be there in the same room and just observe how she practiced, like her left hand. Sometimes I would see that, yeah, she placed her first finger in a slightly different places for this note or that note, but I was already trained not to ask stupid questions, so which I don't think it's a stupid question at all by now, as it being a teacher myself. So, but anyway, so I didn't ask anymore, but I knew that it was true. The finger can be in two places. not at once, but in depending on the context. Here we go into the context actually, or relationship interval, which is not a perfect interval. Please, 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 please remember, if you want clearly good intonation from the beginning, do not go to double stops right away, and do not teach your students to play double stops too soon. Just don't. Just go, please, with a single note intonation, so that finger will learn how to land on a perfect E that matches with the open fully, and then moving it a little bit and landing there a tiny bit behind is very easy to attain, very easy to attain. But if your finger never trained to land exactly at the same place like every time, then it's harder to attain. And it's true that we still play by ear, of course, we do. That explains sometimes when people come out and they tune and they're maybe not in tune very well. I mean, we are talking about great musicians, big musicians. You can just hear, oh my God, their D's out of tune. And meanwhile, the guy will, or the person, or the woman will play completely in tune. How? Well, ear. That's where very well developed ear, of course, will help to navigate right way. But you know what? We're not talking about this level of playing. Today, this stream is not about that level of playing. It's about basic playing. Um, uh, it's basic meaning all levels before professional level. So which beginner, intermediate, advanced. And by advanced, okay, pretty advanced, but still not fully professional, good quality playing. So, okay, so that's where we are today in this discussion, in this stream. So, okay, so then two places, as we found out. So what does it mean? It means that when we've, of course, again, this knowledge is out there on the website, on the web, on the internet. While our single note intonation is in Pythagorean tuning most of the time, we use that one. The double stops are in just intonation. So that's called just intonation. It could be Pythagorean just or just only just intonation. That's when everything would say gels between the consonants. When the B will stay the same place, by the way, for D open, and from your G. And G does match with the G. And the whole thing is nicely ringing and so forth. Okay, so before I will go, okay, so, and and the third, and there is actually a third place for every note, pretty much, if you care to think this way. One of my respondents completely disagreed with this, but again, so did my mom at some point. So, but in reality of playing, let's say you're playing with a piano. You're playing with a piano. That B that I'm playing with my E open will be too sharp, slightly too sharp for the piano B. And the B that I'm playing with my D open will be slightly too flat for that piano B. All right. Most of the time, if you're in parameters, you basically play Pythagorean and you will be okay. Just don't over sharpen that B, okay? And you will be okay with it. It will blend. It will blend fine. But sometimes there's a chord. There's you playing Brahms sonata in G major. You're in that key, and you have your B, and you're sitting on that B, and they have a chord. Yeah, you will be placing it. You won't be placing here. That would be too flat. You will be placing it right about there, but not quite to here, which is our good B. With the U open, right? That one. Okay, so yeah, so basically, there are three places, but I would not train that third place, which means match the piano. It will come by itself, because if the ear is that accomplished in figuring out the hearing, the intervallic hearing, it's very important to establish. That's what we're doing. You play single note, single note, single notes, and so you establish intervallic distances. So if that and your finger is used to constantly fall onto the B that is for single, and then later also what for double stops here, bam, to do it in between, no problem at all. Now, before I go to the questions, let me introduce my friend. So the friend is called Total Energy Tuner, and it was introduced to me also by a student of mine. Unfortunately, I forgot who. So cannot credit right now. But anyway, so I finally got to use it. This this app offers much more than what I use it for. And so some people probably could utilize all of it. But so what I like about this is see that face. I mean, I don't know what the other apps do. Besides giving you different temperaments, and we are here in Pythagorean temperament, and at this point we're in the key of D. By the way, so I really researched this app before I would start suggesting it. I still suggest it only for what I would say clearing up your hearing and not for actual arrivals of every note, especially not in fast tempo, because you see what happens. Actual arrivals of every note, especially not in fast tempo, because you see what happened right now, right? That's how I talk, and it just constantly goes everywhere. So, but to clean up, if you're just wondering if you're playing one note in tune, several notes in tune, that's a good one. And I started using it. So, but only with a condition. So first of all, it's Pythagorean. There are many temperaments here, and there's equal temperament, of course, and then there's Pythagorean, and there's stretched perfect fifths, Pythagorean just, mean tone, 1/4 comma, mean tone 1/3 comma, and so on and so forth. So anyway, we just stay with our Pythagorean thing. We go back to this. And the key right now is the key of D. D and G are pretty similar. In fact, now I think I'm leaning more to the G and for everything. So no, it's not only when you play in the key of G. It's how they tuned that app, okay? But it's actually good for our basic intonation, not to go crazy in that murky water of intonation. So here we go, our A. Let me see what my A is. Isn't that nice? It smiles. First of all, it's green. Then it smiles. Then it just even sings out of happiness that it's so clean. And by the way, you noticed it took quite a while for that happiness to appear. The A is the same, but yeah, the how we draw the bow, of course, does affect intonation. When in the beginning I said we're not talking about the bow, well, no, we're not today because it's a huge topic by itself. But yeah, it's important in with that as well. That's why it's important to repeat notes several times as even as possible. So that's when you get the best result. But anyway, so we said that my A right now is in 441. I prefer 4041 A rather than 440 because most pianos in my university where I teach, they are tuned to 441 and even sometimes 442. So I stay with 441. So anyway, so when I tune, I will tune first that, and then I will go by ear. I will not actually go look at the what it's doing there. You see, it still shows it's very happy, even though on the bottom you can see that there is minus a little bit. You know, human ear cannot perceive this stuff. I mean, no, not really. When you look at it, then you think, oh yeah, I can perceive it. Of course, we can persuade ourselves on anything. But the point is, just without looking, you won't be able to hear the difference. I won't be able to, so which is good news because then we don't have to go crazy. Anyway, so then the G is fine. And I tune them, of course, as I said before, just by tuning my fifths, as fifths do. Fifths go, so the same thing in there. And then from that, now see, it tells me it's a little sharp, right? Because I like it a little bit sharp. I like it to go to the C, so that would be part of expressive intonation. But okay. What does it tell me? It tells me slightly flat again, or and something is just bows, just make more bows, and it will find me sort of in the vibration that the bow creates, and you'll get that note. But yeah, it's a good tool to match consistency over octaves. For instance, a note of C, C natural, right? So you decided that, okay, I'll go with that right now. I'll go just with this purely Pythagorean in the key of D, or you can go into key of G, G major. Well, I mean, D actually will be just D or G. You also can program, by the way, there. Um, you can program whether you are in sharps or in flats. It's right here, so right now I was in sharps. If I go into flats, not much difference. It's not really that sensitive for that. Oops, look at this. My shoulder decided to stay on me. Okay, so here we go, and then we'll go. I don't see much difference in the response actually, whether here for the because I don't have any, it's not a flat or a sharp, but on some notes it will make a difference. Anyway, I'm not telling people, oh, go practice with this, go practice with your whole passage. No, you need to know also that some notes there in the key of D, they will be funky. I don't like them. They don't sound in tune, even though that thing tells me it's in tune. How do I know how they sound? Well, because I've built my intonation by doing what I explained before, by intervallic things. And yeah, and then I can change a key, and it will show me that that note that I really liked is very clean in that key. Again, don't go by keys. Just go by in intervals, okay? It's much more important. Okay, so yes, but that thing proves to be useful in a lot of questionable situations. And by the way, it also has a just setting there. If you go, I guess I'll put my shoulders back on. It has a just setting, and what this just setting do will be exactly the same if you will put your note with a D, or of course it's B, right? By the way, hear how flat it is. Here, this flat is a single note intonation, so. Still tells me that's slightly flat with Pythagorean. That's what it is. But if you play a lot of double stops, like D with B or G with E, the first finger also, right? Yeah, your ear will get used to this flatness of the first finger, and then it will infect everything. And by the way, on E string, you have E and F sharp. So if your E and B, the middle strings, will get slightly depressed because you're playing a lot of double stops, and therefore instinctively, of course, putting the finger back, then your ear still gets it and it says, oh, I guess that is clean now. And then you have those B's and your E's flat everywhere in all octaves. That will be exactly if you have relatively good apparatus already in equipment. So yeah, there will be like this. The A will go down, and suddenly you'll hear, oh my God, why? Why is this flat? Well, it's because your other notes got depressed from open string to the first finger. The same thing with F sharp. F sharp will get depressed because you play it with your A open, let's say, a lot of times. E is, the A is unlikely get depressed because you never played with the next string. We don't have the C string. We had, now our A will get also depressed, like that, but we never have it. So our A is always safe, or almost always safe. But yeah, the other notes may get depressed with the usage of double stops. So once in a while, you have to go to your single note intonation and clean them up. Okay, I think I'm done with the presentation portion. I think right now I can start looking at your questions. Okay, for that, Let me see. So, all right. I will go back, I guess, to the beginning, unless I have any directions to do it otherwise. I have my crew back there monitoring how I'm doing. Okay. So, let's see. So Chloe Spadlenka is here. Wonderful to see you, or to know that you're there. It's always the cello player. No, not always. No, it was just my example. Okay. Somebody, brother AJ, uses the same app. Good for you. Yeah, it is. Do you have tips for vibrato and how different ways can change intonation? Oh, yes, I do. Of course. Let me get back to that question. And by the way, oh, somebody already says she does in YouTube. Thank you. Oh, I guess it's it is in one of my videos. I struggle intonation higher positions, fourth and higher. Can you please give an advice to that? So again, this person, Chris Ma, has asked his question, and well, I mean, actually, is the same thing. So if you're in fourth position, that's already providing that all the rest of your playing is really in tune. In lower positions, it's truly so. Well, yeah, well, this good friend can help with that because it will straighten you out fully. So you just look for consistency. For instance, yeah, let me tell you. So for instance, here I am right now in, as I said, I'm in 441, right? So if I go and I will have, well, what will be, let's say that B note. I can go with that one and trust that that pitch is there. Then you can go to this one. And right now I'm playing harmonic. See how it shows it's flat slightly? There's a flat sign under the green. It's still within the ballpark. But that's exactly what it is. That's what our teachers always say. Like your harmonics are slightly, always sound slightly flat. They're correct. Okay, so here we are. But it's in a ballpark, right? So you put the finger down. And depending on your bowl, so yes, you find that B that was exactly consistent with the Bs that you got before. So for instance, if the first B was like, +5, green face, smiley face, but +5, well, look for the +5 in that one, or look for +5 in the other positions on lower strings. That will be consistency of your intonation, provided it's still in a green, with a green smiley face. Now, when it's really out of tune, as you can probably see, which I also like about this one, So this is a mutt of a note. It doesn't know what note it is, so it gets that face. Huh? I love that face. I at all don't like it if I clean something and then it shows me that face. I don't like it. Unless I chose certain notes to be that way. And again, I consistently will choose them that way over different octaves. So that's the most important part here. Okay, I will turn it off and I will position my bow so that it doesn't fall. Okay. So next question was there in the position of the finger. I addressed it in the lecture itself. Yeah, position is incredibly important. So it's important to land exactly the same way, you land and not like this or that. And don't allow yourself any wobbles. It just has to land how it goes and every time the same. Okay, the fourths are clean, so we really miss those live videos. Thank you. All right, double stops are beautiful. Okay, bluegrass is fun. I agree. Good night from Brazil. Yes. So blew your mind. I learned about it playing E with my A in tune, and yeah, exactly. So let's see, where are questions? Are there more questions? I guess. What is passage? Just, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I did not know she tuned to 441. Yes, I tuned to 441. As I explained it, I prefer this. Let me see. So somehow it went. Yeah, so yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm reading on the side what's going on. It has a metronome, total energy, TE tuner. I'm sure there are other tuners. Of course, there are tons of, app tuners app. But I just know that, like, I have an iPhone, I'm an iPhone user, and I think it comes with some kind of a tuning app, but that one is very basic, and I think it just gives the equal temperament, and it's not good for us. Pianists are good for piano. By the way, there's a very good video on overall kind of a thing about how, mostly for pianists, by the way, but very interesting little video. I will place the link after the stream ends. I will place it there for you for those of you who want to see it. I liked it, but it's for piano tuning, for instruments that are not adjustable as you play, like we are adjustable when we play. Okay. All right. Is the app is damaging if you use it constantly? Is the app damaging? Not if you use it wisely. You have to know the parameters of when you rely on the app and when you rely on your ear. But at first, for the beginning of students, it's very good. Yeah, because when we play in the beginning, no matter how professional we get later on, the beginning of violin is always it's usually horrible sound and really out of tune. Okay, so we have to get ourselves into some kind of a parameters for a while. Now our teachers would say, "Oh yeah, that's much better. That's in tune, good." Well, in fact, if you compare it with that one, it'll tell you that face probably a lot of times. But nevertheless, our ear gets trained and trained and trained, and our hands get trained, and our bow also gets trained, and we start playing more in tune. And that's when you can start using that app. I would not use it. Well, maybe you can use it actually in the beginning as well. You just have to, you'll be very frustrated. But it's okay. It's not damaging, no. Tunable for quick tuning and for hyper tuning, time-led piano. Okay, I don't know. Sometimes I feel that I'm in tune while practicing a passage because my violin feels and rings, but then when I play with the same without it, sounds wrong. Well, that's that Chloe's mentioning that. Yeah, well, in order to know if it's you or their player, always record yourself. Always record all rehearsals. That's what I always do. Record your rehearsals. You have a phone, Android or Apple, doesn't matter. You record your rehearsals, and then in the passages that were out of tune, you can start discerning who was out of tune. That helps. And I guess you guys are using some kind of a tunable, right? Okay, fine. It's probably good tunable. I'll check it out, see how it compares to what I have. The vibrato, again, somebody's asking me about the vibrato. Yeah, the vibrato affects, of course, may affect the intonation, obviously. But I do have a video on this. I mean, I'm not sure. Do I have a video? Yes, I do. Video in which I touch that subject. So I would encourage you to watch that video. Also, Daniel Kurganov, or Kurganov in more English, I guess, but Kurganov for me, and I talked about this specifically in a live stream that we had together a while ago. So that will be on his channel. He has a wonderful channel and just a wealth of information as well. So we discussed that about vibrato specifically. So watch that one. Do I suggest to use a drone at all? Only, yes, you could use drone very sparingly And only when you know that when you're that's only for other people. When you play with other people, it's for ensemble playing, and that's when you hopefully you're in like one stable key for at least several notes, and other people are playing some notes from that chord. That's when drone is useful. Otherwise, no. I don't know who came up with drone anyway. We finally we never used I mean, I don't remember a single time who somebody would say practice with drone for your single note intonation. Never happened in Russia. Okay. What supports the violin during vibrato? It's arm or chin in combination of both. It's everything. Yeah. But don't clamp. It's not the conversation today, so I won't go into it. But yeah, it's many. It's all has to be flexible. Okay. So mostly you're vibrating on the thumb feeling. Yeah. Okay. Fourth finger intonation, third position. Um, I would. It's most likely your position. Yeah, check where your elbow is. Maybe your elbow is too much forward. Maybe to move back away from the A string. Someone is asking Pythagorean is versus just tuning. Pythagorean and just. Yeah, I think I explained it later on after this question. I guess it was how would you teach fifths when fingers students are a bit smaller or different? You know, it's a good question. Like in my life, life, in Russia back there, you had to play in tune. Nobody cared how thin your fingers are or were. Mine were extremely thin. I mean, I still have thin fingers. You can see like they look thin, but they're like twice fatter now, bigger than when I started playing. And for the first 7 years of playing. So I was growing and my fingers were extremely thin. So I had to play my fifths a lot of times to be in tune. I had to do things like this, like get to that to play in tune. It's impossible, of course, to do this, but in some situations, that's the only thing that works. I must say that's another, I mean, I'm not saying that your students should do it. But what I'm saying is that we also had very bad strings back in that Soviet Union country. Our strings were not uniformly attuned to each other at all. So changing strings was a big ordeal. If you change your A and you just learned all of your octaves on D and A string in tune, then you change your A and it tunes everything is different and you have to relearn all of your octaves on those two strings, but not on the other one, not on a G and D. It stays the same as before. I mean, it was a nightmare. And yet we still did it. We still had to play in tune. So no matter what, if the ear is there, the student will find the way. If they have to twist the finger, they will have to twist the finger. If they find, hopefully, maybe the finger will not completely go in between strings and they can lean to one string a little bit and put it in a good way, like this. So I put the finger here, but you see I'm more on that A string. Okay, it's all very sharp, but here and a little bit of on D right there, but I will lean more onto D. I will get a much better result, for instance. But again, will it be exactly the same way for any hand on any strings? I don't know. On these ones, I'm using Vision. It works. There's an option to put the setting in Pythagorean just, and also can you go into that? Yeah, don't go. Don't go. This is Pythagorean just. It's just. It's from the family of just intonation, not single stop intonation. Okay, let me see. Okay, drone. I saw that one. I only use drone for scales. Okay. How do you recommend students go about practicing scales? Should we focus on a single note, on a single scale in different positions first, or practice different scale in the same position before moving to others? Again, in my early training, because that would be all early training, we did not leave the first position until we be very certain about, where the fingers go. But I think it's okay as long as you don't use shifting right away, because shifting yet another ball game completely in our playing. So I think it's fine to, if the student is very talented, if they're moderately like usual regular student who is practicing, who wants to play, but you don't hear that, oh my God, there's just amazing gift in there. You don't hear that. I would stay in first position for longer and memorize. The T tuner, you can put the temperament on Pythagorean just, I don't know. I haven't seen it. You know what? I don't remember it, honestly. But just don't go there. There are some things in life. I got this. I got this advice from a very, very good friend of mine many years ago, and she was actually a professional psychologist, right? And she said it's about little different things, but she said, there are some areas where you just don't want to go there. Very good advice. Just don't go there. Just use, again, you can explore it on your own, of course, but practically, Pythagorean for single stop, and just, you can put it there as a just, or the Pythagorean just, doesn't matter. It'll be very close. Or just use it by your ear playing double stops. How do you prevent a shaking, narrow vibrato in high position? Well, we're not talking about position vibrato today, so unfortunately I won't answer this question, but maybe I'll make another video on this or something. Okay. I have a problem to play in tune in higher positions. Very hard to play small intervals. I think my hands are too big. There could be, but there are people with huge hands. For instance, like Itzhak Perlman. Look at Itzhak Perlman. You can't get people with bigger hands, like meatier and bigger, and how he plays in the upper positions. Not much. And yet he plays completely in tune in high positions. How is it possible? First thing, it is possible. This is what one absolutely needs to know. It is possible. So that already opens different venues in how to get there. So a lot of times in the upper positions, we have to, I would call it replace fingers. So when we play, even my thin fingers, sometimes I would feel like I have to do, let me see, this way. So I'm just really putting it so close that I can't put them two next to each other, because it will be slightly, it will be too far. So in order to do this, I'll have to replace. So yeah, if that's what you need to do, that's what you do, and then you get used to it. All right, so it looks like, you're welcome. It looks like these are all questions. Did I not answer somebody? If so, type your question right now. I will wait for a little bit. And if not, then I will leave. What clues do you use to train your ear to recognize not ringing notes? As I explained, that's what we use. The clues, you build the intervals. And first you build in intervals with the notes that you can check. Well, yeah, there are notes that we can't check. So again, if I go to my favorite A, well, why not my favorite A? Well, because we tune to A, I guess. And I will get my B, and I check my B. Then I will go, now I need to go to the C. Do you hear that I'm landing on two different C's? One is slightly sharper, the other slightly flatter. So both will be in the ballpark of the green, I'm pretty sure, there, See the green behind me? Maybe it's not smiling because I'm doing it a little bit too much on purpose, so you could hear the difference. But it still will be in the ballpark of green. So that is a choice. So what if you're more beginner or like intermediate player, not super advanced, that will be, I will choose which one I like more. And I will build all of my half steps. I will memorize how the interval sounds. It's very important, interval sounding between B and C. Not just, oh, my C has to be there all the time, but the interval between B and C. It's a half step. That's how you will build all the other half steps on with other notes when you have, E and F. E you will check, F you will build just like this one right now. So that in your to the best of your ability. Oh, Daniel, I can't believe it. In your busy schedule, you still came here. Unbelievable. Thank you so much. And thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Um, Limits on practicing with the drone. Example, in scalar passages going 3, 6, 7. Bad, of course, wrong. Just versus expressive, but maybe good because sensitizes listening and fingers go to correct expressive spots at the end. Anyway, I agree, of course it will, but again, I think this is a bit, it comes a bit later in our development as violinists. As I said, I mean, I wouldn't do this too early. I wouldn't do this when we're first establishing intonation in those rules, the clarity, because it's, yeah, well, I don't know, maybe that's the difference between the Eastern European, or I don't want to say Russian because it wasn't just Russians, but Eastern European way of setting intonation and more Western, maybe, I don't know, but I'm just saying what I know for sure works. But yes, of course, at some point at a later time, yeah, practicing with drone is not bad. Yeah, as you say here, sensitizes listening and fingers to go to correct expressive spots. Correct. Not too early. Not too early. Okay, and thank you again for being here. Jackins, when putting down both second and fourth finger in first position in wide setting, second and fourth, I am unable to keep the fourth finger curved with the relaxed hand. What can you do? Oh, as my teacher would say, practice. Even I would say practice. Relaxed hand, I don't know. The hand will not be too relaxed. If you're pressing with two fingers, hand will not be too relaxed. It will be that one. Yeah, you need to get used to this because it feels like I got my third finger out of the way. It feels like a stretch. So first you need to have your fourth finger. If you want that kind of fourth finger and not this kind of fourth finger, which I, got myself out of that one, which I played when I was little. I had to go to this one. Not everybody does, by the way. Not everybody does. But I had to, and many people have to. But that would be a topic of another stream, if anything. But yeah, it's. I don't think my hand is too really relaxed. It's just not too stuck. I mean, it's working in working shape. So your muscles are working, your tendons are working. Yeah. Okay. So somebody is telling you here, your hand frame centered more towards your first finger. It needs to be centered on the fourth finger. Again, that is the Milstein exercise. Go to my video, which I talk about the Milstein I call it this way, Milstein exercise, and do those exercises. It will recenter your hand for better feel. If you're starting with the bottom fingers and extend the fourth, yeah, we'll have more of a problem. Will there be a live about left hand placement? I've been trying to practicing with a straight arm, but very tense when playing on E string. Chloe, main thing is that don't do anything that causes a lot of tension. If you have a lot of tension, just stop. Stop and reevaluate. The rules are, you mean that sort of straight, because that's what I remember you go into that, right? So where your elbow is, it has to feel the same way pretty much. In here, in this area, has to feel the same thing, the same ways as on A string or D string. when your knee, and usually it's the elbow that needs to get out of the way. Is cleaning artificial harmonics useful in cleaning intonation? Yes. Yes, definitely. Very hard. So if your artificial harmonics are in tune, it means that your intonation is generally in a good space, in a good place. Is it an option to intonate the C from a perfect fifth down from the third finger G? I the C of the G major scale example from a first finger down fifth. I don't understand this. I think I don't understand the wording too much. Too many words. Which fingering for 4-octave G major arpeggio is better for intonation? Really, it doesn't matter. I use 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, all of us were trained to do 1, 2, 3, 4. All of us, again, I'm talking about Soviet Union, Russia, so forth. Yes, the risk keeps coming out. So, yeah, so you, Chloe, you have a habit. Your habit is to play with this. It's a habit. If you have a default that is like that, yes, your hand will constantly go to this. This should be default. I mean, that should be default. And that's from there, like that, relax, that from there, you should be investigating how to put your fingers. So you have to go from feel to the where you put them, because they might feel completely in different places. Yeah, it's a different thing. So, yeah, so of course, you know what to do with the mirror and all that. All right, people, I think we're done. I thank you all of being here, asking questions. And okay, thank you, Daniel, again for being here. And I will see you later at some point. Yes. Okay. Bye.